Like, this is fucking heartbreaking. Like, this is uncool. Like, it's one thing to think, this is destroying families and like the esoteric idea that people in Florida are having to leave their state. And it's like, I know that. And it's just, it feels so different when it's hitting your family. We've been talking about anti-trans care bans across the country, specifically ones that target children. That's the majority of them. Majority of them are targeting teenagers' ability to transition. For children, it's puberty blockers. For teenagers, it's hormones. They can't access those types of care in some of these places where they're making it illegal. In some places, they're adding like grandfather clauses so that if you're already on the care, you can stay on it. But in other places, they're making it to where they're just taking it off completely, or trying to at least. And some places are filibustering. We've talked about those senators in Nebraska who are filibustering right now. That's really wonderful. There are some senators in Missouri who are also filibustering. And I think we may have talked about both of those things, Nebraska and Missouri together. And the great thing about the Republican Party right now is that they are certainly employing some fascist tactics to take power through other means. So because of the fact that in Missouri, there is a filibuster right now, they've proposed a bill that will make it so that you can't have puberty blockers and all that stuff as a teenager. You're not allowed to have any of that stuff. But that's being filibustered by some legislators who clearly really care about children in their districts and in their state. And so because of the fact that this is being held up in the legislative process, now keep in mind, the way that this is supposed to work is some person runs to represent your district, your county, whatever, and you go and vote and you say, yes, I want Mr. Blue Suit to make my vote happen. And like cause I'll get it. Cause Mr. Blue, you know what? He really believes the same things that I believe. And I want him to vote for my place. So let's say, your guy, Mr. Blue, is filibustering and you're like, yes, that's correct, because I don't want this bill to pass. He is representing my view in the government by using the power that he has in order to prevent this bill from passing. And then the Missouri Attorney General's office, just outside of the legislative process, goes, yeah, no, we're going to issue an emergency rule saying that gender affirming care, like, we're going to require a bunch of stuff to make it like impossible or difficult to get it. Here we go. Like, kind of just glancing over it. Individuals of any age experiencing dysphoria or related conditions should be able to, this is why. Gender dysphoria, the diagnostic thing about gender dysphoria. I'm going to have beef about that for the rest of my life now. Okay, so this says individuals of any age experiencing gender dysphoria or related conditions should be able to and are able to obtain care in Missouri. Often this care takes the form of psychotherapy, also known as talk therapy, rather than any chemical or surgical intervention. So they're promoting conversion therapy over the understood medical care for this, which is hormones and puberty blockers as necessary and surgery as necessary. And they even cite the W path. This is sickening to me. The World Professional Association for Trans Health has previously put, this therapy often involves exploring the many influences on a person's gender identity. WPATH, which describes itself as an organization committed to advocacy for certain changes in public surgical intervention. Even still, the organization has, quote, highly recommended psychotherapy because psychotherapy can, quote, greatly facilitate the resolution of gender dysphoria. And because through this therapy, many individuals integrate their trans or cross-gender feelings into the gender role they were assigned at birth and do not feel the need to masculinize or feminize their body. So they're kind of like twisting what the WPATH has said in order to fit this thing. In recent years, the use of other forms of interventions, often without any talk therapy at all, has accelerated exponentially. These include life-altering pubertal suppression, cross-sex hormone therapy, and gender transition surgery. Yeah, again, the false claim that many medical organizations have determined that these interventions lack solid evidentiary support. That's just not true. Quoting Sweden, a country where up until 2017, you still needed to be sterilized in order to change your identity documentation, your gender on your identity documentation. Yeah, Sweden is really the company that we're going to go, the country that we're going to go to for that company. They're falsely stating again, a significant number of children and adolescents who begin gender transition interventions desist in their desire to transition. Not true. Endocrine Society has acknowledged that children experiencing gender dysphoria are more likely to identify with their natal sex if they do not socially transition. I don't think that's true. And even if it is true, that's genocidal. You're saying that if we force them through their regular puberty, then they'll desist. You're saying that you want there to be fewer trans people. You think that being trans and being healthy and being well-adjusted is not a desirable outcome. You would rather force them to stick with their natal sex. It's great. So yeah, this goes on and continues the lies and the stuff that we've already looked into. And what this has come down to, they want to make sure that for at least the 3 most recent consecutive years, the patient has exhibited a medically documented, long-lasting, persistent, and intense pattern of gender dysphoria. Tell me again how gender dysphoria is a real and necessary part of the process of accessing medical care for trans people. Tell me more about how you think that that's the correct way to do this. Yeah, conversion therapy is torture. Okay, but what if we call it something else? What if we just call it something else? So they're requiring 3 consecutive years of documented dysphoria, which means 3 years of contact with a doctor and having a doctor confirm that you're allowed to transition. And that applies to adults as well. Like, this is not just about kids. This didn't specify. This is only for kids. This is for everybody. So for everybody, you have a 3-year wait from the time you first speak to a doctor about your gender dysphoria, a de facto 3-year wait before you can start to get the medical treatment. And then additionally, they need to ensure that the patient has received a full psychological or psychiatric assessment consisting of not fewer than 15 separate hourly sessions, at least 10 of which must be with the same therapist, over the course of not fewer than 18 months, to explore the developmental influences on the patient's current gender identity and to determine, among other things, whether the person has any mental health comorbidities. So this is also making it to where you have to spend thousands of dollars on therapy, literal thousands of dollars, 15 sessions, an hour long each, with a therapist to confirm that you know your gender. Great. And this little bit about confirming whether the person has any mental health comorbidities. Oh yeah? You know what else? How about this? You need to ensure that any psychiatric symptoms from existing mental health comorbidities of the patient have been treated and resolved. So if you have depression because of your gender dysphoria, if you don't resolve your feelings of depression, like if your doctor could say hypothetically that maybe your feelings of depression are not 100% caused by your dysphoria, you will never get dysphoria related care. You will never get gender identity related care. And here's another thing: fails to ensure that the patient has received a comprehensive screening to determine whether a patient has autism. People are construing that to mean basically that if you have autism, you will not be allowed a gender transition, like affirmation care. I don't know that it's really clear. Maybe like this whole thing is longer and it goes a lot further into it in the other details. But like, it seems like, you know, autism is a non-resolvable mental difference, and that there is a possibility that you will not be able to transition at all if you are autistic. Oh my God, what the fuck? You have to ensure, with respect to a patient who is a minor, ensuring that the patient has received a comprehensive screening at least annually for social media addiction or compulsion, and has not, for at least the 6 months prior to beginning any intervention, suffered from social media addiction or compulsion. Is that even real? Is social media addiction even something that is considered real? Or is this just something, like, psychologically speaking, like even amongst psychiatrists and stuff, I don't know if that's even understood to be a real thing. Social media compulsion? Or is that just something that the Republicans have made up again? The previous DSM required 12 months of therapy. Yeah, and then they got rid of that requirement because it was obviously fucking stupid. That makes no sense considering autistic people are more likely to be gender nonconforming. That's why it makes perfect sense. Because they know that that's going to be most trans people. You do realize that it's like almost all trans people have like depression or anxiety or autism. Like almost every single this is effectively a blanket ban. This is effectively a blanket ban. If you're autistic, if you are mentally ill in any other way, if you have an eating disorder potentially, and plenty of trans people have an eating disorder, and if you have an eating disorder because you don't have any control over what your body looks like it's not going to resolve. It's not going to resolve because gender affirmation treatment is the treatment for the depression and anxiety associated with like the incongruence that we experience. For anybody who can't afford that much therapy, for anybody who is unstable in their home environment and has to move from place to place and can't keep a consistent relationship with a therapist, those 15 sessions, you have to have at least 10 sessions with one same therapist. Like there's so many different ways in which this is effectively a blanket ban. They say up top, like, oh, yeah, we just want to affirm individuals of any age experiencing gender dysphoria or related conditions should be able to and are able to obtain care in Missouri. But we, like, who aren't medical professionals in any way, shape, or form, have just determined arbitrarily that this form of care that has been shown to be the most effective form of care for gender dysphoria or gender incongruence or whatever you want to call it, this is the only form of treatment that's effective. Everything else is a form of conversion therapy. And it's maddening. And here's the thing. Here's the reason why this is in particular so upsetting to me. If you didn't know, I have a trans teenager who is my brother, who lives in fucking Missouri. And there is a grandfather clause, a tiny bit, sort of. So this rule was filed April 13th and becomes effective April 27th. So there is an exception here for continuing a prescription or provision of a specific intervention that has already begun, so long as the person or health organization promptly seeks to initiate the treatments and assessments called for by these subparagraphs. So, you know, hypothetically, they're going to let him stay on the hormones, but they need to demonstrate that they're trying their best to get this therapy process started. So, like, my parents, who already can't really afford very much in terms of like medical care and therapy and shit for their family, you know, like they're going to potentially, like, they have to at least be shown to be making the effort. So maybe the best thing that can happen is that their doctor, who they're already taking him to, can like do a slight bit of bureaucratic gumming up the works and like maybe take a long time to send the referral, and maybe send a referral to a doctor that they know has a really long wait list, and like just hope to stretch that out long enough that we can continue to get him access to care. So like technically he's grandfathered in, but I don't know, like there is no specific timeline listed here. So long as the person or health organization promptly seeks to initiate the treatments and assessments called for by these subparagraphs. And it's not like it's much better in Kansas. I intend to have this teenager of mine come live with me sometime next year, probably. And Kansas is also trying to shove through they're also attempting to shove through a ban on trans kids having access to care. So this is like, it affects me in the sense of it's broadly, like it affects my community and it sucks and it's stupid, but it also directly affects my family. Yeah, but aren't you glad that Biden said he has our backs? I'm just so glad. I'm just so glad that he's here to help us. This guy, who I think he was one of the sponsors of the bill in Missouri. Like, there's, you know, the bill in Missouri that they were trying to pass before the attorney general just decided to completely screw over the voters by circumventing their will. Okay, so then this guy, let's watch this video.
I've heard you talk about parents' rights to raise their kids how they want. In fact, I just double checked. You voted no on making it illegal for kids to be married to adults at the age of 12 if their parents consented to it. You said actually that should be the law because it's the parents' right and the kids' right to decide what's best for them, to be raped by an adult. Okay?
Do you know any kids who have been
with
married
marriage
at age 12?
That was the law. You voted not to change it.
Do you know any kids who have been married at age 12?
I don't need to.
I do. And guess what? They're still married.
Gentlemen.
That was, okay, so this whole justification, he was like, if you sell a child to an adult man at age 12, they tend to stay married. Wow. What a rock solid defense of your position, you fucking pedophile. Like, what a hell of a defense. So these are the people who are supporting taking away access to healthcare to my effectively 17-year-old brother. Like, it feels weird to me sometimes to talk about his experience, and I don't talk about it in detail because he is a completely different person than me, and like he deserves to tell his own story if he wants to. But like, I am not able to compartmentalize like the rage and helplessness that is involved with, like, I take a pretty significant role in my siblings' lives. Like, I'm tutoring them in school, and like I'm gonna have them live with me when they're ready to start college. Like, the relationship that we have is much closer than a lot of people have with their younger siblings, right? And like, I can't express to you, if you are not a person in a parental role, the lengths that I feel like I would go to destroy these people's lives because they're trying to fuck with my family. Like, you're gonna piss the wrong people off. I have a lot of restraint. I don't want to own guns. I'm really truly not interested in Molotoving anybody. Someone is going to fucking freak out though. Like, you can't put this much pressure on people and steal their rights and like subjugate them and treat them like shit and use us for your fascist takeover before some crazy shit happens. Truly, this is another question. I wonder why this guy knows people who were married as kids. What kind of men are you friends with who where you're like, yeah, my wife was 12 when we got married. It's insane. And I can't even be mad about it in terms of like, ooh, the inconsistencies, because the ability to have the power to be hypocritical and inconsistent is the point of fascism. Like, the ability to do things opposite to what they say that you should do is part of the point. It has to be a religious thing, right? Like, it sounds like some very Mormon shit. I'm not even sure if it's explicitly Mormon, but I would say that it's probably religiously motivated, or at least it's religiously justified. I think that pedophiles are pedophiles and that they just use Christianity as an excuse. I mean, yeah, truly. That's the question, Harley. If it's okay for a 12-year-old to marry with parental permission, then why is it wrong to give trans kids hormones with parental permission? It's because it's fascism. It's because they want to take away your rights and piss everybody off. Yeah, PSA, again, everyone get your passports. I still haven't gotten mine because I still don't have enough money saved up that I can comfortably get one. I'm gonna have to ramp up the requests for donos this year. If you enjoy this content, click like, subscribe, and consider dropping me a dono. Yeah, share the stream, anything helps. Hitting like, sharing the content, subscribing. Delicious water. Water is good for you, babes. Hail, hydrate. Make sure you're drinking water. Tip your waitress. I hope that the ACLU steps in and that the issue in Missouri gets put on hold. The likelihood that it's gonna just happen anyway, though, like, all of this stuff has to go to the Supreme Court, you know? All of this stuff has to reach the Supreme Court. Like, it's gonna keep happening. You know, they're gonna keep passing these trans care bans, and then judges are going to say, whoa, you can't do that extra legislatively. You can't do that out of the legislative process. You can't just declare that this is child abuse. And then it's going to get appealed and appealed and appealed up until it gets to the Supreme Court. And then, yeah, trans ban is actually accurate, right? And then once it's at the Supreme Court level, they have the votes to be like, yes, we've decided that nationwide trans people no longer have the right to gender affirming care unless they go through like 3 years of dysphoria. I'm gonna have some serious problems if any of my trans friends try to argue with me about the dysphoria thing after this. I'm like, no. Dysphoria is the basis by which they are denying us care. They are denying us care specifically by gatekeeping this diagnosis behind all this bullshit. ACLU have invited people to who are affected to contact them. It sounds like they're looking for a plaintiff. This fucking sucks. You know, we spend so much time talking about the political aspect of it, and I don't, you know, I want to acknowledge the human aspect of it. Like, this is fucking heartbreaking. Like, this is uncool. Like, it's one thing to think, you know, this is destroying families and like the esoteric idea that people in Florida are having to leave their state, and it's like, I know that, and it's just, it feels so different when it's hitting your family. I even was feeling like, oh, you know, maybe it's not a big deal because I'm an adult and my access to care isn't up for question in the same way. Like, I'm almost 30, so no one is sitting there trying to take away my access to care in Kansas anyway. But then, like, yeah, it's just painful. Like, it's so painful. And the fact that I'm gonna have to go tell this teenager who's already stressed out about like being behind academically, that I'm gonna have to be like, yeah, we're gonna start rationing your meds now, because we're gonna have to start rationing the meds now, just in case for some reason if their medical provider decides to stop providing care, which I hope they don't. Like, yeah, we might have to say, yeah, continue filling your prescription the same way that you've been filling it, but we're only going to take like half of it. I don't really relish the idea of crying on stream. I'm not like Markiplier, I'm not like gonna openly bawl on stream, I don't think. But like, it really sucks. Like, I really want to cry over it. It's so unethical. In order to start those 3 years of gender dysphoria, you'd need a diagnosis, which means you would need to be officially diagnosed with a medical condition that you are then refused care for. No doctor would ever be allowed to do that for any other medical problem. Right, yeah. In what other diagnoses do you get and then you are not allowed to receive care for 3 years? Like, that just doesn't make any goddamn sense. It's so fucking stupid, and it's just so painfully cruel. This and abortion, basically. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I understand the decades-long frustration with abortion stuff. You know, Jane Fonda, hold on, where is it? Jane Fonda.
We have experienced many decades now of having agency over our body, of being able to determine when and how many children to have. We know what that feels like. We know what that's done for our lives. We're not going back. I don't care what the laws are. We're not going back.
I think the women will rise up.
That's the activist.
That's Jane
speaking, and she probably will get a Nobel Prize.
But it's the truth.
Very soon.
It is the truth. We're not going to do it.
Besides marching and protesting, what else do you suggest?
Well, it doesn't happen overnight. It's not a miraculous.
She said, well, murder.
What did you say?
Murder.
She's kidding. Wait a second. She's just kidding.
Don't say that. That's
you don't know. They'll pick up on that and just run with it.
Worst.
She's just kidding.
Well, let me talk to you about
the face that she's making. Everybody's like, she's just kidding. She's just kidding. I assure you, she's just kidding. And she's looking around like, y'all think I'm fucking playing around with this? Y'all think I'm making jokes? Y'all think this is not serious? So anyway, Jane Fonda is my patronus. Oh, God, it sucks. This sucks. This sucks. This sucks. This sucks. This sucks. Lux, will it only apply to teens under 18? If your brother is 17 now, it's only 1 year to wait. Here's the problem, Olga, is that this thing in Missouri, this thing that we were talking about in Missouri affects everyone. Everyone of every age is going to be disallowed from, well, not disallowed exactly, but like if you have depression, you have to resolve, quote unquote, your depression symptoms before you can get gender affirming care. They're requiring 18 months of therapy before you're allowed to start. Like, you have to have documented 3 years of gender dysphoria. And so that's true for adults as well. So starting now, like, or starting at the end of the month, really, it's April 27th that this ruling kicks in, unless it's stayed by a judge, which hopefully it will be. But starting at the end of April, there is a limited amount of time for them to, like, they have to initiate this 3-year-long process so he can stay, or I guess for him it would be 18 months. But like, so because he's already on the care, they need to initiate the process where he's going to be in therapy for 18 months. And that would be after he's 18. More than a quarter of US adults say they're so stressed they can't function. I am able to function, but only because of some very excellent compartmentalization skills. I am able to function only because your donations allow me to work a job where I can just fucking not do anything for an entire day when my body shuts down and won't let me function. So thank you for that support. Yeah, I think about this tweet all the time. The queers who were nice, gentle, and patient all got shot or bullied to death, and all that's left are me and the other pissed off cockroach motherfuckers. Do we know that it doesn't reset the clock to 0 with this bill? So, because my brother is already on testosterone, he wouldn't need 3 years of dysphoria documented before he's allowed to start care, because he's already on the care. So what is required now is just that they initiate 15 therapy sessions over the course of 18 months that you have to pay for. It's probably not going to be covered by your insurance. Surprise. And the point of that therapy, the insulting point of that therapy, is to try to determine if there's some, like, reason. Like, so they're going to say, if you were molested when you were a little kid, they probably won't let you transition. Like, if you were molested as a kid, they're probably just going to say, well, you're only thinking you're trans because of that, so you don't actually need medical care. I'm able to function just enough to work a part-time job. Thanks to food stamps, I can survive at least. Yo, food stamps have made a huge difference. I am able to save any amount of money each month because of food stamps. Like, the amount of money that I save each month is not very much more than like the monthly allowance of my food stamps. So yeah, they're going to try to torture you into giving up, I'll bet. They can sure fucking try. I only dig in harder. Like every single one of these fucked up things that happens, I only get more crazy. Like, so just keep amping it up. Just keep doing it. Like, just keep pushing people's buttons and see what happens. Good fucking luck. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes is about to be like the motto of the trans revolution. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. I'm just waiting for the next George Floyd event so I can be in the streets burning shit down. This is a battle of attrition. Like fundamentally, at the end of the day, this is a battle of attrition. This is a siege. They want to starve us out. That's what they're trying to do. This is a siege. They're trying to like destroy us through attrition, and that's what makes it harder to rally around, because we probably aren't gonna have one singular moment of a very clear violation of human rights ethics where like someone gets their neck kneeled on. I do to an extent think that George Floyd being a man had something to do with the visibility of his case. Like fucked up shit happens to black women all the time too. But that's like the reason that popularization of the Say Her Name hashtag happened was because of black women not being acknowledged in the discussion about Black Lives Matter. Even George Floyd being a black man is still a type of person that society cares about more than trans people, more than trans women, like more than any of us. I had a psychologist about a year ago who tried to tell me that maybe I think I'm trans because I was traumatized by going through puberty so early. I'm pretty sure I was traumatized by puberty because I'm trans. So that type of person could probably stop someone's care in Missouri, I'm guessing. Yeah, I mean, basically, they're going to make it to where if they discover something weird in your past, they're going to blame that. Like, my mom was abusive to me. My mom was physically abusive. And so they're going to say, oh, well, you were alienated from your femaleness because your mother was abusive. But if you had had a proper female role model, then you wouldn't be trans. So we're just going to decide that you can't access medical care. But I guess we can hope for like one clear moment where there's a big uprising, but I don't know if they're going to be. And I think that trans people's reaction is going to be portrayed as an overreaction no matter what we do. Yeah, so it's just a bad time, and it's going to continue being a bad time for a while, I think. And escape and other forms of undesirable actions are going to end up being our only remaining options. Happy April! Thank you so much to all of my Patreon supporters, and especially I want to shout out Tiago Nascimento, Mersh Rolvog, Danielle McDonald, Amanda B., R. Halverson, Sarah A., Spooky Heather Sylvia, Michelle Winter, Athiette, Jamie Jam, Wellington Marcus, Elizabeth Bartell, Nova, Sojo, Suzanne Maynard, Mr. Atheist, and Kevin Young.